حي على الفلاح حي على الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him because He is worthy of praise. And we see His worthiness of praise through His names and attributes, His beautiful names and attributes that manifest themselves in the natural world around us, in the Quran, through the messengers, and all of our daily lives. So we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way He praised Himself. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the evils within ourselves and the evil consequences of our actions. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon the last and final messenger, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and upon his family and his companions and all those who follow him until the day of judgment. Ameen. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the people of taqwa, and we remind one another to embody taqwa throughout our daily lives, and know that the one who embodies taqwa in their actions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them, guiding them, protecting them, and giving them day in and day out. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among the muttaqeen. Amma ba'd. When you look at the history of Islam and the history of the world, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us to do that. أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَتَكُونَ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا أَوْ آذَانٌ يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا. Have they not wandered in this land? Have they not traveled and saw this earth? Meaning, have you not seen how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it? But also, have you not seen the civilizations that used to live in these areas that no longer live there anymore? In history are many lessons for us to learn from. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala utilizes this throughout the Quran by telling us about the stories of the civilizations before them, before the companions, before the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, look at history. And in history are lessons. And when you look at the history of Islam, and how Islam spread, and how Islam entered other areas of the world, you find consistently that Islam and Muslims do not enter a land except that they bring positive elements to that area. Except that you find Islam flourishes, enters the hearts of people, builds the civilization. So when Muslims started spreading throughout the world, you find that they are the ones who established universities, centers, areas where people were able to elevate their status themselves. They are the first civilization perhaps that embodied, that accepted other faiths as being part of the civilization, being part of the society, as well as minorities. Simply, they were not issues when you look at Islamic history. My brothers and sisters, can you please start moving up? Jazakumullah khair. You don't find that there were feuds between Muslims and minorities, or between Arabs and non-Arabs, except on a political level sometimes, or very rarely. These weren't issues of our times, because Islam comes and it brings life to society, and it brings life to the individual. So you find that as Muslims spread, Islam spread throughout the lands. People didn't enter Islam all at once. Persia did not become a Muslim majority land overnight, nor did Syria, nor did Egypt, nor did Iraq. But what you find is that over the centuries, people slowly entered Islam. And this is evidence, very strong evidence, against the claim that Islam spread with the sword. No, it didn't. People entered Islam through da'wah, through observing Muslims and Islam, and how it brings so much good. And to give one example of how Islam brings so much good, an individual, the king of Mali, or a king of Mali, by the name of Mansa Musa. Look it up. Western researchers talk about him. Mansa Musa is considered to be one of the wealthiest individuals in history. And they talk about his wealth. Well, you find that they also mention this individual was a devout Muslim. And look at how it manifested itself in his life. You find that when he went to Hajj, a year trip, going and coming back, he would not enter a village except that he would find the poor and give them money. He would not enter a village except build a masjid there. He would enter larger cities like Cairo, and they would all come to him, and he would give wealth to the poor. Why? Because he is implementing his faith. A faith, a religion, the Quran, that tells us to build, don't destroy. Tells us to reconcile, don't divide, etc., etc. All of this rich history, these individuals, all of it was inspired by the Quran. It all goes back to the Quran. This book that was revealed over 23 years, yet changed the course of human history. It all goes back to the Quran. And when you analyze the Quran, what we call the Sharia, the scholars have confined it, or the scholars have summarized the Sharia into one phrase: Dar'ul mafasid wa jalbul masalih. Preventing harm and bringing good. That is the Sharia summarized. And some even go beyond that and summarize it even more, saying that preventing a harm is in our interest, and therefore the Sharia in its entirety is about jalb al-masalih, bringing good to the individual, to society, to culture, to the family. It all goes back to the Quran. Jalb al-masalih wa dar al-mafasid. So you find that the Quran, if it tells us to do something, makes it an obligation: pray your 5 daily prayers, fast Ramadan, give your zakah, do your hajj. You find that in it is masalih, benefits, interest for the individual, for the family, for the community, for society, for civilization. So you find the masjid was the center of any town in Islamic history. It was the center. In fact, they built their cities centered around the masjid. The first thing you would do is build a masjid, and you find that everything else surrounds that masjid. It was the center. And from that masjid, knowledge was spread. People sought counseling. Judges were there. It was right there. Prayer is the pillar of the masjid. So you find that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to pray, it builds our civilization. Fasting, the same thing. Giving zakah, the same thing. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits us from something, such as drinking alcohol, fornicating, or homosexuality, it is because there's harm that comes from it on the individual, on the family, on society, and on culture, and on the civilization. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it is forbidden. It destroys society. It brings harm to it. It causes diseases to spread, sexually transmitted diseases. It is bad for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send the Quran, did not send messengers, did not make the Sharia for himself. He made it for us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows us better than we know ourselves. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not know what He created? And He is the all-knowing and the well-acquainted subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is our history. The evidence is clear. The examples are plenty. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do something, it is for our own best interest. It builds our society. And today I want to quickly, briefly talk about 2 or 3 things, depending on time, that we should really look at ourselves, reflect on our own lives, and see whether we apply them or not. Number 1 is enjoining ties with family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it an obligation, the Prophet ﷺ has made an obligation upon us that we have good ties with our families. Even if our families are not practicing. Even if our family members are harsh with us. And there are many examples in the hadith tradition. One individual comes to the Prophet and says, Ya Rasulullah, Allahumma salli wa sallim alayh. He says, I enjoy ties with my family, and they reject me. They try cutting the ties. I am good to them, and they respond to me harshly, in a bad manner. I constantly check on them, and they constantly ignore me. Should I continue to do this? So the Prophet ﷺ said, if you are as you say, meaning you do what you are telling me, then it's as if you are holding a hot piece of charcoal. It's very difficult. But if you continue to do that, then know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you, protecting you, and helping you, and giving you reward for that. And the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, continue to enjoy ties with people even if they cut us and ignore us. And the Prophet ﷺ also teaches us that if we cut ties with a family member or a friend, we no longer talk to them, then our deeds, our good deeds, are put on a side. We do not benefit from them until we reconcile with that individual. So look at our own lives. Do we have an aunt or an uncle, a brother or a sister, a child or a parent that we have broken ties with? It's simply unacceptable. Why? What's the logic behind it? Because the Quran came to build our civilizations. And if our family unit is not healthy, society cannot be healthy. And we see this left and right. We must. It is an obligation. There are consequences for this. Imagine going on the Day of Judgment and saying you can't benefit from your deeds. You cannot enter paradise until you reconcile with that person. If someone has wronged someone else, and the Prophet ﷺ tells us to seek forgiveness from that person, make up with that person before returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a day where there is no dollar to use for your best interest, to use to reconcile, to use to change that feud. Rather, it is hasanat and sayyi'at. You're either giving them from your hasanat, or you are taking from their sayyi'at. Islam came to build a civilization, and it starts with the family. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to make sure that our ties with our family members is healthy. Another way Islam comes to build civilization, to build and make sure our society is healthy, is that when we give charity, and charity is such a noble act, there is an order we should give it in. And it starts with what? Al-aqrabin. Al-walidain wal-aqrabin. Your parents and your relatives. Unfortunately, so many people tend to neglect their sibling who is going through a financial hardship, or their parents, and they give charity to other people, or they give it to an organization. Yes, that's good. But the Prophet ﷺ teaches us that if you give sadaqah, then that is the reward. You get one reward. But if you give sadaqah to a family member, you get 2 rewards. One for giving the charity, and one for enjoining ties with your family member. When we are going to give charity, before giving charity, ask yourself, are my parents okay? Are my siblings okay? Are my aunts and uncles okay? Do I have a cousin that's not doing well? Do I have a family member who's in debt? I can help them with that. Do I have a family member who's going through a financial hardship to help him or her? Start with the family member. And also think of new ways or important ways to give charity. We tend to give charity to the poor overseas. Well, we have many individuals here in this society, even in SoCal. It could be a young man trying to get married, struggling with the society that we live in, the promiscuity, a complete openness to sexuality, struggling, and they can't get married because they don't have the financial means to do it. They might have a stable job, but getting married is expensive. Find someone like that and help them get married. Or someone who's going to college. One of the greatest economical problems, concerns of America today is student debt. Find a student and help fund their education. That is sadaqah, that is good reward. Not only are you giving them charity, helping them, alleviating a hardship upon them, you're also helping them get a job, establish their lives so that they can get married. And look at how this builds upon itself. When that person has a professional job and they have an attachment to the faith, they come to the message and they start giving back and they give to others, and it keeps building and building and building upon itself. We tend to focus only on one category, the poor. And we forget the poor of our own family members. Single mothers, for example, go through so much in the society. Single mothers. There are plenty of single mothers, whether they're divorced or their husband has passed away. And you imagine that. And recently there was a viral video of an employee at Chase who's making $14 an hour and talking to the CEO of the company, saying, I make $14 an hour, I live in Irvine and I cannot make ends meet. By the end of the month, if I spend most conservatively, I still have a deficit of $400. You make $33 or $66 million a year. How can you help me, find that extra $400? Single mothers, look for them. They are everywhere, and help them out. And know that whoever helps someone in need, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps that individual. Whoever alleviates a hardship from an individual, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviates a hardship for them in the next life. Whoever stands with someone through their hardship, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with them in their hardships in this life and the next life. So much reward, but it's so important to make sure our society continues to flourish and is stable. This is our legacy. This is what Islam brought. This is what the Quran brought. And this is what we see in our history. We live up to this. We are not people who are dragged around by ideologies and trends and hashtags and celebrities. We are people who build civilizations, not follow others. And I really wish the youth can understand this, learn about your history, the Islamic history, and know that any good that you find in Western civilization was taken from Muslims. Taken from what they built, whether it's algebra, whether it's medicine, whether it's other sciences. In Iraq, they were performing cataract surgeries. In ancient Iraq, not ancient, in Islamic history, they were performing cataract surgeries. We are the ones who lead. We are not led. We are the ones who build civilizations. We don't let people without theology build civilizations, because you see it today. Things are crazy. To be very blunt, things are crazy and they're getting crazier. Why can't a man love another man? If they love each other, it's okay. They love each other, no one's being harmed. Well, why can't a brother and sister love each other in that way? Do we not find that disgusting? It's not about just the love. It is about what the consequences of that. We build societies, we build civilizations. That is our legacy, and we continue to do that, inshallah, until this day. An example in our own history here in America. Look at how much it built. Look at how much it progressed. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always make us leaders and those who bring good to society, whether to Muslims or to non. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we as Muslims, when we compare ourselves to other societies, we're not necessarily the smartest people. We're not necessarily the strongest people physically. We're not necessarily the most organized people. What makes us unique is the Quran. And the Quran inspires us with theology. in ground embedded theology. So much so that it took the most desolate, one of the poorest civilizations, Quraysh, Mecca, in history, so irrelevant that no one cared to conquer it or to colonize it, and made them leaders, or made them individuals who changed the course of history, of human history. It was done by theology. And you find that any activism in the Quran is supported by theology. Number one, our belief in Tawheed, in La ilaha illallah. The more we know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more the beautiful names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begin to manifest itself in us, in our characteristics. So you find that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the characteristics that he had are the most praiseworthy. Why? Because they are characteristics which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has deemed praiseworthy. And he himself is the embodiment of that subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Rahim, the most merciful. He loves those who are merciful. Builds a civilization. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-knowledgeable. He loves the scholars. Build civilization. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most generous. He loves those who are generous. And generosity helps build society. And number two, our belief in the next life, in akhirah. It makes us who we are. Not only that, it makes humans who they are. When we lose sight of the next life, when our goal, our lives are no longer centered around the next life, we lose something fundamental, not only to us as Muslims, but also to human beings. We lose vision. And it becomes very easy for these hashtags and these trends to start dragging us around. Why? Because we have no identity. We have no solid foundation. But when we are attached, our lives are centered around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and around the next life. These are two things that are inchangeable. You cannot change these things. They are realistic, they are realities. And therefore, when our identity is built off of that, we're not easily dragged around. It's not going to happen. Rather, we are the ones who call to what gives life. أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُ نُورًا يَمْشِي بِهِ فِي النَّاسِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, was there not, take this example, the individual who was dead, meaning their heart was dead, there was no faith, there was no light in it, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put light in that heart, and they became a source of light for other people to use as a role model. And one of the examples of that, the common one, is Umar radiallahu anh. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us leaders and make us a source of good for all of mankind, as the Prophet ﷺ was sent. That is our legacy. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet ﷺ as a source of mercy for all of mankind, we continue to honor that and embody it. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us mercy for all of mankind. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our good deeds. May He accept our Ramadan and to bless us with more Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, protect our ideology and theology, especially for the youth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them and to always inspire them through the Quran and make them leaders and not those who are led. We have a few announcements. Make dua for Brother Mahmoud Al-Hanbali, who is very sick. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him shifa and to grant him patience as well. Also make dua for Sister Lina. Her name has been coming up quite a bit. Alhamdulillah, they finally found a donor. Alhamdulillah. They've been looking for a very long time, so they're going to start the process soon. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them a successful process. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give her a long life, a healthy life, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them for their patience and all the concerns that they go through in their hardship. The OCIF survey has been sent out to the community. Please take a moment to fill it out. Inshallah, we will give you until next week, and then we will close it next week so that we can continue the process. Again, the survey has been sent out. Please do take it. Your feedback is critical for our strategic plan. The Pillars Academy summer camp starts June 24th until August 2nd for ages 3 months to 14 years old. Registration is still open. A new series, inshallah, will be starting Tuesday between Maghrib and Isha called the Prophetic Characteristics, where we'll take a characteristic of the Prophet ﷺ and talk about it. Again, that's Tuesday between Maghrib and Isha. And also another new series will be starting Thursday, this upcoming Thursday, June 18th, between Maghrib and Isha. That's called Tafsir, Discussion, and Refreshments. It will be every other Thursday. Again, both these sessions will be starting next week. Access California is holding a community educational screening and discussion about mental health here at OCIF on Friday, June 28th at 7:30 p.m. My OC meeting is tonight. The youth group will resume tonight. And finally, the Friday summer Quran class will begin tonight at 5 p.m. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا وأصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا وأصلح لنا آخرتنا التي إليها معادنا واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our good deeds and may He make us among the strong believers. Wa aqim as-salah.